Welcome or welcome back to my channel. Please like, share, and comment. Please subscribe. Thank you to all those who have been supporting. Thank you to all those who leave comments, likes, and share my videos. Thank you so much. If you're new here, please subscribe. It helps the channel a lot. Leave a comment. Just tell us which country you're listening from. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the love. It is all appreciated. Now, enjoy the story.
Once upon a time, there was a nation named Zazuma. The government had decided to invest lots of money in technology and AI. Now, to do this, the government partnered with many companies. One of such company was the Azura company. The Azura company was an IT company. The government partnered with this company, and the executive director of the company worked for the government. The chief executive director of the company worked for the company itself. The executive director, her name was Eberechi, Ebere for short, and the chief executive director, the CEO, was Anozie. Now, in this company, there was a department named the Innovation Department. The department was responsible for generating reports that justified each idea that was brought up, each invention that was brought up. The head of the department was a woman named Uchichi. Uchechi was kind, gentle, and very good with her workers. And Uchechi worked closely with Ebubedike. Ebubedike was a very intelligent man who worked very, very hard. He would stay long hours in the office to get the job done. However, in the same department was a man named Ikenna. Ikenna and Ebubedike were on the same level. However, Uchechi, the head of the department, who had been there for a long time, knew that Ebubedike was more dedicated and more committed than Ikenna. Ikenna would come to work and socialize with everybody, smiling, talking, and one would think that he was the face of the department. One would think that he was the one doing all the work. But in actuality, it was Ebubedike. Ebubedike, though he was a nice man, was not very social because he was very hard work and focused on the work that needed to be done. Now, because of the mandate and the goals of the government, this department was in the eye of the president. Lots of funds went to the department. The government wanted to invest a lot in technology and AI so as to compete with other nations around the world. Because of this, lots of money will come to Uchechi. Now, to get these funds, Uchechi had to present great inventions and innovations before the government, justifying why the government should invest in this. And if successful, the funds will be released. Now, because Uchechi worked closely with Ebubedike, lots of funds were coming in because she knew Ebubedike was the brains behind the department. He was the one coming up with the many great ideas for the future, and these ideas pleased the government. And when the money comes, she will distribute it amongst the contractors who will initiate these plans and bring it to life. And that is where the problem started. It seemed as if Uchechi was in charge of a lot of funds, and this made the ED very jealous. Ebere wanted a slice of the cake. After all, she was the ED. She was the one who signed all these agreements that are generated, and she sees how much is involved. But because it was Uchechi's department that comes up with these ideas, the money goes straight to her department account. The ED was very jealous. Now, one day, as was her usual practice, Uchechi came to work very early and went straight to her office. A few minutes after, the police came looking for her. They said that someone had reported her saying that she was siphoning money to her own contractors instead of the contractors that had been approved by the government. Uchechi was very angry and surprised to hear this. She had never done such a thing. She has always been honest. She shared the money according to how the government had approved it. She never kept anything for herself or for any so-called contractors. But the police insisted that they had received the reports. So, with a search warrant, they began to search her office. And lo and behold, in one of her drawers, they saw a contract that she had signed, giving millions of money to a company that her husband owned. Uchechi was so surprised and heartbroken. She had never done such a thing. "This document is forged, officer," she shouted. "I couldn't have done this." "What do you mean you couldn't have? Is this not your signature, madam? Who signed this if not for you?" Uchechi began to cry. "I am innocent. I didn't do this." The police did not listen to her. They immediately arrested her. Now, during this time, Ikenna and Ebubedike were writing their promotion exams. In the company, in order to be promoted, you had to write an exam. And that very day, Ikenna and Ebubedike had not come to work because they were writing the exam in another venue with other people in their grade. They were writing this exam so that whoever passed would take over Uchechi's position. For you see, Uchechi was about to retire in 3 months' time. But when Ebubedike came out from the exam hall, his colleagues began to call him and tell him that his Madame Uchechi had been arrested. She is in the police cell. And immediately Ebubedike went to her. He asked her, "Madam, did you do what they accused you of?" And Uchechi was crying. She had never done such a thing before. "Then how was the signature on that document, ma?" And Uchechi cried and cried. "My enemies have succeeded, Ebubedike." And then Ebubedike told her, "Think, madam, think. Is there anyone who would do this to you?" And Uchechi said the only person she could think of was the ED, Ebere. The ED one night had invited Uchechi to her house. Instead of putting the $70 million into the government account, that she should bring it into her own account and both of them would share it. But Uchechi refused, saying that the money was government money. The government had invested a lot into AI and technology. They wanted the advancement of the country, of their people. How can she siphon this money? The ED smiled and said nothing. That is the only thing that Uchechi could remember. That is the only person she could think of. No one else would have access to her office. Someone must have forged this thing and put it in there, she said. Now, there's nothing Ebubedike could do. He was not a senior management officer, but he, with other staff, went to the ED to plead with her to tell the police officers to leave Uchechi alone. That Uchechi has been crying that she's innocent. Because many people pleaded on Uchechi's behalf, the ED intervened and told the police to leave Uchechi alone, that they would investigate internally who forged her signature. And so, Uchechi was allowed to go home. However, she retired with disgrace because many people believed that she forged the signature while others did not. But because she had worked for over 30 years in the company and was close to retirement, they allowed her to retire at home. Now, while Ebubedike and Ikenna were waiting for their exams result to come out, Ebubedike noticed that the ED was only giving Ikenna work. Ikenna became very close to the ED. They would spend time together working over the government proposals that came. She never gave Ebubedike anything to work on. All the money that had been approved while Uchechi was still the head of the department was beginning to finish, and the contracts in which they were released for were not executed. Now, during this time, the government sent in the CEO, Anozie, to work directly with Ebubedike's department. They had released some funds and they wanted the department to give them good ideas in which they could invest in. But since Uchechi left, they noticed that the ideas that were used to come out were no longer coming out from that department. So they asked Anozie to work closely with the department so that they could have at least 3, 4, 5 ideas in which they could initiate. So as the government directed, Anozie began to work directly with Ebubedike's department. Anozie, being an experienced man in the business, began to ask the junior staff what was happening in their department. And the junior staff told the CEO, Anozie, that the brains behind the department was actually Ebubedike and not Ikenna. Ikenna was good in doing what people call eye service. He would smile with everyone, be polite with everyone, and you would think that he was doing the work, but actually he was doing nothing. The person who was committed, who stayed up all night, was Ebubedike. He was the one who came up with the ideas. Because of this, Anozie worked directly with Ebubedike, and anytime the government will send approvals, he would not take it to the ED, but move it straight to Ebubedike. Now, this made the ED very, very upset. Now, as the junior staff had informed, the moment Anozie began to work with Ebubedike, ideas began to come out. Ebubedike would draft many proposals, many reports, justifying why the government should invest in one project or the other, and explaining how other nations were partaking in these projects and how successful they were. Now the government was very happy. They were now releasing more money to Ebubedike. And then the ED realized that actually it was Ebubedike who had the brains. Now, after a while, the exam results came out, and Ikenna was the one who passed. Ebubedike did not pass the exams. So, in the turn of events, Ikenna now took over Uchechi's position. Therefore, every proposal had to pass through Ikenna before it gets to Ebubedike. So now, as Ebubedike did not pass the exam, he told the CEO that the CEO shouldn't send projects to him directly. He had to send it through the ED, who will send it to Ikenna, and Ikenna will send it to him. Because now Ikenna was his boss. So the CEO, respecting Ebubedike's wishes, would always tell Ikenna that any project that lands on his table, he should share it with Ebubedike. But Ikenna did not do this. Ikenna will keep all the proposals on his table and he will not give it to Ebubedike. Gradually, the ideas in the department began to fail. And the CEO, believing what Ikenna was saying, began to think that Ebubedike had lost his touch and he was no longer as brilliant and as hardworking as before. Now, having so much free time on his hand, Ebubedike decided to pursue a passion he had always wanted to do. Since he was not able to pass the promotion exams, he decided to write the exams to become the minister of the global AI organization. It was a very high dream, but because he knew he liked AI and technology and writing proposals, he wanted to be the minister. It was one of the highest positions in the land. So he registered to take the exam. A day before the exam, while Ebubedike was at home reading, the ED called him. "Where are you, Ebubedike? Where are you? Run now and come to the parliament," she shouted. "Come immediately." Ebubedike left all he was doing and ran straight to where Ebere was. And Ebere explained to him that the president had asked for an idea that Ikenna had presented. The president was so angry because the idea was useless and he wanted someone to defend why it was presented to him when they knew it was not complete. Ebere could not speak up, and Anozie, the CEO, could not speak up as well. They were all dumbfounded. However, Ikenna, who actually wrote that proposal, was nowhere to be found. They had called and gone to the office to look for him, but no one could find him. So they called Ebubedike. In actual fact, Ebubedike did not write this proposal. He did not know what Ikenna had written, but he knew of the project. He had an idea of what it should be. So, without any paper, he began to explain it to the president and the parliament, telling them how good the project was and how it should be implemented to better the people of the nation. Everyone was so happy in what he said and began to clap for him. Immediately, the president told Anozie that Ebubedike should be the head of the department instead of Ikenna. Anozie, like every other person, was happy and surprised at the same time. He agreed with the president. Then he took Ebere and Ebubedike aside and asked Ebubedike what happened. For some time now, nothing was coming out of the department. And Ebubedike confessed that since Ikenna was made the head of the department, Ikenna refused to share any proposal with him. Ikenna only ate the money and did everything by himself. Anozie was so shocked to hear this. What are you telling me? Ikenna was the one that said you were not serious in working. Ikenna explained that you were corrupt and all you cared about was the money. And when Ebubedike was about to speak up and deny these allegations, Ebere was the one that spoke up. She said that it was Ikenna who had been corrupt all along. Ikenna had convinced her that Ebubedike and Uchechi were in cahoots to steal funds from the government. However, in actual fact, it was Ikenna who had been stealing funds from the department. Money had been going missing, and Uchechi had begun to ask questions. And when she was about to involve the police, that was when the forged signature issue started. As it turns out, because of the police investigation, they had found out that it was Ikenna who came into Uchechi's office that morning using his forged keys to drop the forged documents in her office. Ikenna had plotted everything out of envy. He had been jealous of Ebubedike. Everyone was going to him, giving him work, showing him respect, but they did not show Ikenna respect. Now, because of this, Anozie sent the police after Ikenna, and they found Ikenna in a hotel with many women spending money lavishly. And once arrested, Ikenna confessed to everything he had done. Now, Anozie told Ebubedike to become the head of the department. However, Ebubedike said no. He wanted to be the minister of the global AI. He was supposed to have written the exam, but he missed it because Ebere had called for him to present before the president. So now, after listening to Ebubedike, Anozie pleaded on the president to give Ebubedike the opportunity to write the exam. And if he passed it, then he will become the minister. And so Ebubedike wrote the exam and passed it. When he passed it, he was made the minister of the global AI. He was now working directly under the president, and the president was very, very happy.